And so good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for taking the time to come along today. Um, we usually have a wide range of attendees from around the world, so also good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be. You're very welcome today to be launching the first in a series of books in the area of neurodiversity that arose from a number of papers that were presented at our first international conference, which was organised by UCD, Maynooth University, Stanford University, ADHD Ireland, and the Neurodiversity Hub in December 2020. And there was also following conferences on for that. These conferences were so successful that we developed a series of monthly masterclasses, which were organised whereby speakers will present about their areas and provide the audience with a more engaged format to discuss their various topics. As a result of the success of these masterclasses and conferences, it was decided to bring these diverse and important topics into an accessible book format to assist with the development of advancements and a social paradigm shift in the area of neurodiversity. Indeed, if you look through the previous masterclass speaker list and indeed the conference lists, and to have a look at their names and titles, you cannot help but notice that it's a who's who of renowned world speakers and thought leaders in the area of neurodiversity. These include such people as Professor Simon Baron-Cohen, Dr. Lawrence Fung, Damien Milton, Professor Sonia Gurler, and Professor Sarah Racken, among many, many others. A number of speakers were invited to contribute to the books. The framing for the books is one of inclusivity, respectfulness, and others' opinions, even where there's disagreement. Enabling and empowering individuals who are often disempowered by the system, and reflections to allow for the contemplation on often complex ideas that push the boundaries of presupposed and long-standing social and biomedical ideas. The first book in the series is Neurodiversity and Mental Health, and presents an evidence-based and theoretical informed guide on effective and impactful strategies for the collaborative advancement in the area of neurodiversity and mental health in terms of healthcare service and social and political institutions, and be sure to become an essential reading for practitioners, students, scholars, or others seeking to understand how mental health challenges and neurodiversities occur, and how these optimal outcomes for patients can be achieved. The following book is Neurodiversity in Higher Education. Neurodiversity is becoming a higher priority and gaining greater recognition, yet significant challenges still remain. This book offers a comprehensive exploration of strategies and innovative initiatives designed to foster inclusion for neurodivergent students. It is an invaluable resource for higher education academics and non-academics, illuming pathways towards accessible learning environments and systematic institutional change. Highlighting both challenges and transformative changes, the books underscore the necessity of systemic change for neuro-inclusion in higher education. Over the last 20 years, last number of intervening years, we've also ran conferences on neurodiversity in the criminal justice system, and we're currently planning our next conference for May 2026, which we hope you'll attend, which will be on neurodiversity in later life. And it's hopeful that these events will provide further titles in this series. I would at this point like to thank all the editors, of which there's many. So there's been Ethan, who's here today, Ethan Quigley, Andrew Eddy, Timothy Frawley, Charlotte Fuller, and Blonde Gavin, for all their hard work and dedication in bringing these titles that we're now able to launch today. Having seen the time and effort needed to bring these titles together, I remain astounded by their dedication and commit to ensure that these titles represent the best that neurodiversity can be. And without wishing to go too far out on the limb, considering the team effort that has been involved in this, I'm sure we'd all like to especially thank Blonde Gavin and Ethan Quigley for their passion, drive, and dedication in getting this series to where it is today. Just in terms of running order for the event, we will have a couple of speeches. We will be going shortly to Neurodiversity and the Mental Health book. Timothy Frawley is going to give an introduction to that, and he will introduce Dr. Beth Oakley, who's a lecturer in neurodevelopment science with King's College London. Andrew Eddy will give a brief rundown on neurodiversity in higher education and introduce Dr. Laurie Ackles, who's Executive Director with the Canopy Neurodiversity Foundation. At all times, we would like to get your engagement in this. So just to let you know that the chat function is open. So if you have anything you want to say among yourselves, please do that. However, we are leaving 10-12 minutes at the end of all the talks for your questions and answers. So if you do have a question, and we sincerely hope you do, and we'd be happy to put it to anybody on the panel, please pop it into the Q&A, and at the end, we'll be happy to do that for you. We've also, we were hoping that the publisher were able to join, but due to another commitment, they weren't able to be here today. And so they've sent us in a little note, which I'd just like to pass on to you from Alice Marr, who's the editor of Routledge, Taylor, and the Francis Group. And she says, I'm delighted to celebrate the official launch of our neurodiversity series with the release of both Neurodiversity and Mental Health and Neurodiversity in Higher Education. This innovative series aims to provide an accessible understanding of the important topics in the neurodiversity field from a range of theory, policy, and practice perspectives. It presents a comprehensive overview of the current research relating to neurodiversity and outlines a gold standard approach for the optimizing of outcomes, in addition to providing a roadmap of further research and practical implementations. The scholarly work in this field is diverse, but there's been a lack of cohesion in terms of the main topics in international convergence and divergence to date. This series aims to bridge that gap, bringing together scholars and practitioners as both editors and authors, with the objective of creating a dialogue between these two often siloed groups for shared and comparative learnings across jurisdictions. And very importantly, she also makes the point that this series also makes sure to include the lived experience of neurodiversity in each book, achieved from either the direct writings of neurodivergence or the inclusion of neurodivergent perspectives through contributions, review, or inclusion in research studies. Incorporating both academic and practical content from international perspectives, this series offers an informative and accessible information resource for scholars, policymakers, practitioners relating to the teaching, research, policy and development and best practice learnings. We're incredibly excited to be working with Andrew, Ethan, Timothy, Blonde and Charlotte, and we cannot wait to see how they create this collection of important works going forward. So I'd like to thank Alice for presenting that for us. And just in terms of now, if it's possible, I'd like to go to Charlotte Valor, who's from the Institute of Neurodiversity. And I'd like Charlotte just to give us a little bit in terms of words from how the series means to her in terms of her perspective from the Institute of Neurodiversity.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you so much for laying out the land of our books and what we've been working on for quite a while and what we might be working on going forward. We find that the Institute of Neurodiversity, it's incredibly important to ensure that we write down things that we experience, that we find out as we go along this journey. The whole change in the neurodiversity movement has been significant, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, but really it has been going on since the late 90s. And we can see the impact it has in society, but we do need to evidence and make sure that the witnessing that we are doing is getting written down. So these books are some of that, where we have a number of different contributors, and we have made sure that we have the lived experience of neurodivergent people like myself. So I want to express my thanks for everybody being part of this, and also for all of you being here today. It really is quite important that we bring all our minds together to make sure that we keep things for the future that we experience. It might be that in 5 years' time, what's in these books is part of the next move to the next level of neuro-inclusion around the world. And that would be very nice if that was the case. So we are extremely happy at the Institute of Neurodiversity to be part of this and to see the books come to life now. Thank you.
My shortcut wasn't working there to unmute myself, so apologies for that. Well, thanks very much for that, Charlotte. At this stage, I'd like to hand over to Timmy, who's going to give an introduction and an outline to the first book in the series. You have to unmute yourself, Timmy, as well. So.
There we go. Thanks, Emil, Ken, and of course, Charlotte, for your words today. I've prepared a little introduction to the Neurodiversity and Mental Health book. And of course, I just want to reiterate our thanks to everybody who has made this series possible, from the contributors who worked tirelessly on chapters and drafts, all the way through to the publishers, Routledge, who have been of incredible support over time, to ADHD Ireland as well, and other partners that we have worked with over time, and indeed to you for joining us here today. And particular welcome to Beth Oakley, Laurie Ackles, and others who have joined us. But just to speak a little bit about the mental health book, it is a distinct privilege to launch the book. We do hope that the series overall can be transformative in how we view neurodiversity. The book, of course, it's worthwhile noting, began life not as a publication, but as a conversation. In 2020, at the height of global uncertainty, University College Dublin, Maynooth University, Stanford University, ADHD Ireland, and the Neurodiversity Hub, uh, uh, led by, of course, Andrew in Australia, came together to host an international conference. What happened over those days exceeded all of our expectations. The conference became a space not simply for sharing knowledge, but for deep listening, for dialogue, and perhaps most importantly of all, for connection and sharing of ideas. That sense of connection carried into our monthly masterclass series that followed, with special thanks, of course, to Beth Kilkenny and Ken Kilbride, and of course, the speakers themselves for contributing their time voluntarily. Of course, over a series of months, we were joined by, in many cases, hundreds of participants who engaged in thoughtful, sometimes challenging exchanges that pushed the boundaries of what we all thought we knew. The discussion sparked something important, a recognition that the field of neurodiversity needed a more accessible, more inclusive space, a space where lived experience would sit at the center. This series of books, we hope, will be and are becoming that space. From the outset, we sought to ground the books in community-led neuroaffirmative frameworks. Every contributor was given the freedom to write in a way that felt authentic to them, whether in identity first or person first language, whether in a personal reflective voice or a more traditional academic style. I believe that's a real strength of the book. Its authenticity and the range of voices which we hear across the books, across the series, and certainly evident too in the mental health book. Across the chapters, though, you will note some recurring themes. Systemic bottlenecks, for example, diagnostic overshadowing, educational inequity, and the profound mental health toll that comes from being misunderstood. Yet, our books do not simply list problems. They refuse to list problems. Instead, we seek to imagine and to build something better, something which can provide hope, indeed solutions to support people, clinicians, academics, educators, and others. Chapter by chapter, the mental health book explores the complex intersection between neurodiversity and mental health. We see actually how this intersection operates across areas as diverse as GP waiting rooms, education centres, workplaces, and even within families. We hear about the strain of masking, the exhaustion of autistic burnout, and the distress created when services rely on systems not built with neurodivergent people in mind. We learn how easily communication mismatches can be misinterpreted, and we see the very real harm that arises when neurodivergent voices are dismissed. But alongside that, we see strength. We see creativity, resilience, expertise, and community knowledge. And most of all, a deep desire for change. One of the most powerful threads throughout the book is the principle of nothing about us without us. Indeed, this is not a slogan. It is a human rights position. It tells us that knowledge is not only produced in universities or clinics, it is also produced in lived experience, in the quiet daily negotiations that neurodivergent people make in environments that are rarely designed with them in mind. It tells us that meaningful progress cannot happen unless neurodivergent people are not only consulted, but in fact placed at the epicenter. Whether we look at healthcare, education, higher education, community life, or global migration, the message is consistent. Neurodivergent people do not need to be fixed. Society needs to evolve. One particularly striking chapter in the mental health book examines the experiences of neurodivergent African migrants in New Zealand. A reminder that neurodiversity is not a Western concept, nor should it ever become one. Culture, race, migration, and social power shape how neurodivergence is understood and lived. Any global neurodiversity movement must honor these differences and avoid imposing a single worldview. This book and this series of books takes that responsibility seriously. Across the 10 chapters, we see deep interdisciplinary insight. We see evidence-based frameworks for schools and universities. We see neurodiversity affirming approaches to mental health care. We see new theoretical models for understanding co-occurring mental health conditions. We also see practical strategies, such as the autistic space framework. And we see pioneering explorations into the relationship between neurodivergence and physical conditions, such as joint hypermobility. Most importantly, though, we see hope. It's not naive hope, but it's grounded hope, informed and determined hope. Hope that mental health care can be redesigned to meet neurodivergent needs. Hope, too, that schools and universities can become environments of belonging. Hope that policy, and indeed social policy, can become more inclusive, more rights-based, and more human being-centered. Hope that research can remain rigorous while embracing authenticity. And hope that society can move towards recognizing neurodivergent people as essential contributors to our collective knowledge and cultural life. The book does not pretend to have all the answers. However, it does invite dialogue. It disrupts echo chambers. It shows that disagreement, when respectful and informed, is vital for making progress. And it encourages us to step into a broader, more compassionate way of thinking about neurodiversity. As we launch these books today, my hope is that this book will serve as a catalyst. Perhaps more importantly, a catalyst for listening, deep, respectful listening. And I believe firmly that we need more of this in our society overall. Listening to lived experience, listening to neurodivergent scholars and communities, listening to those whose voices have too often been missing from the conversation. Because when we listen, we learn. When we learn, we grow. And when we grow, we create spaces where every mind, not just the neurotypical mind, can flourish. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today, for joining us online, for being here and for supporting this work. And indeed, through your presence, being part of the wider movement towards a more just, inclusive, and neuro-affirming society. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Beth Oakley, who is joining us from King's College, London.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And just on behalf of all our team, I just wanted to say a big thank you for inviting us to say a few words on our involvement in the book at today's launch event. And I've already been very kindly introduced, but wanted to kind of bring our research team into the picture. So our research is multifaceted, but one of our key focus areas is the experience of co-occurring mental health, particularly anxiety and depression in neurodivergent populations, directly kind of aligning with the overarching theme of this book. And our involvement in contributing a book chapter followed up from the previously mentioned 2023 conference, Neurodiversity, Shifting Paradigms in Mental Health, So one of my close colleagues, Professor Eva Loth, had alerted me to the initiative and these books. And I was really delighted to see not only the focus here on mental health, but also the emphasis on co-production with the neurodivergent community in both the development and the drafting process. And we'd completed a series of interviews with autistic adults aiming to reflect their lived experiences of mental health, and the insights from that work really felt like a perfect fit. So we commenced with drafting chapter 2 of this book, which we titled Lived Experiences of Mental Health in Autistic Adults, a Narrative Exploration. And so we sought expressions of interest from our autistic representative colleagues, and we're really pleased that several were keen to contribute to drafting, review and editing of the chapter over several months in the end. And that was really invaluable in shaping what I believe is such a rich narrative of the varying and interconnected factors that impact mental health for many autistic adults. And so those factors highlighted were things that have kind of already been touched on so far today. So things like chronic environmental stress and burnout, exposure to stigma and trauma, and also cognitive processes. So things like difficulties with emotion awareness and regulation, and the challenges of navigating an unpredictable world. But crucially, the lived experience accounts were also emphasizing factors that were promoting well-being, such as the positive identity as an autistic person and the importance of social support networks. And so for me, these insights and the knowledge and expertise shared in the book as a whole are so important, not only for students, academics and professionals in providing a contemporary knowledge and understanding of the intersection between neurodivergence and mental health, but also for informing priorities for research, policy and practice moving forward. And this includes considering environmental adaptations to social infrastructure that will minimise barriers to access for neurodivergent people, promoting better public understanding and acceptance of neurodivergence to reduce stigma, and efforts to develop more effective and evidence-based support strategies that are sensitive to neurodivergent experiences, and consider not only reducing mental health problems, but also enhancing positive well-being and thriving. So I just wanted to extend my thanks once again to the editors and the whole team for their amazing work. And I very much encourage everyone to engage with the book. And I myself am really excited to read it in full now. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Beth. Appreciate it. As we were saying, this is an international effort, and at this stage, we'd like to head over to Australia, where it's approaching midnight, and we'd like to thank Andrew for staying up so late to do an introduction to the book on higher education.
Thank you, Ken. So about 18 months ago, two of the co-editors on this series, Associate Professor Blana Gavin at UCD and Dr. Ethon Quigley at Maynooth University, asked me to take the lead on creating the Neurodiversity in Higher Education book. The reason for this was my work over the last 6 years, or over 6 years leading up to my retirement in early 2024, specifically co-founding Untapped Talent and the neurodiversityhub.org community of practice. This initiative aimed to collaborate with universities and employers to help neurodivergent students in higher education become more work ready and improve their employment prospects. During the 6-year period, I had the opportunity to speak to and collaborate with universities, employers, and individuals in Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Singapore, India, Israel, Egypt, Italy, France, Spain, Jersey, England, Scotland, Ireland, Sweden, Peru, Canada, and many locations throughout the US. I was also involved in several conferences in the US and Australia, as well as numerous conferences and the Neurodiversity Masterclass series with colleagues on this webinar in Ireland. So I had talked to a lot of people. I've been involved in a lot of discussions and seen many examples of good practice, and I therefore saw an excellent opportunity to reflect all of this in the book. In designing the Neurodiversity in Higher Education book, identified several topics I believe deserved dedicated chapters. Drawing on past speakers at the conferences that we've spoken about, we included chapters on designing for neurodiversity in higher education, the impact of assistive technologies, inclusive design of the built environment, and examples of focused work integrated learning programs and neurodiversity friendly university project. Sorry. Additionally, because of the significant focus on autism in some chapters, we included several chapters, separate chapters on dyslexia and ADHD. So these 7 chapters comprise part 1 of the book. Through my activities with Untapped Talent and the neurodiversityhub.org, I encountered many examples of student programs developed and implemented at universities worldwide. However, I wasn't convinced that dedicating a whole separate chapter on each was the right approach, or that the leaders of these programs would necessarily have the time to write them. Therefore, in collaboration with Blanid and Ethon, a template was created to provide a concise program profile covering the program's theoretical or research basis, approach and key features, reasons for the approach, the main challenges and enablers of implementation, outcomes, future implications for research, and application to other institutions. We invited a number of university programs to complete this template, and this became part 2 of the book, featuring 9 program profiles. As part 2 was effectively a distinct section of the book, we also thought it beneficial to include a foreword by someone experienced in the field. Therefore, we approached Professor Sandra Tom-Jones, who's actually on this webinar tonight, an autistic author, artisan, academic, and advocate who reviewed all of the profiles and wrote an excellent foreword for this section. So thank you to Sandra. Apart from the editors, we end up with 50 contributors to this book. They come from various countries, including Ireland, England, Jersey, the USA, Canada, Australia, and Malaysia. And I'm truly grateful to each of them for their dedication and patience in developing their contributions, which have made this book what it is. The introduction to the book also includes the novel concept of the neuroverse, which is what I see as the interrelationship and interplay between the physical, virtual, and cognitive environments. For clarity, I defined a cognitive environment as the collective awareness, understanding, and acceptance of neurodivergent individuals within a given environment. The introduction argues that the current system is primarily designed for neurotypicals, creating unfair obstacles for neurodivergent individuals. It advocates for a deliberate shift in the cognitive environment to promote more inclusive physical and virtual environments. The main aim is to assist academics and staff in building successful and welcoming university environments where neurodivergent students and staff can genuinely thrive. In the epilogue, based on all my conversations over the years, I've included a comprehensive list of initiatives that can help raise awareness, foster acceptance, and reframe the narrative around neurodiversity. I also discussed the concept of availability of different work and learning environments and approaches, and have included a range of alternative ideas on creating more engaged, inclusive environments. I'm very grateful for the opportunity of this book, and would especially like to thank co-editor, Associate Professor Timmy Frawley at UCD for his close collaboration in reviewing and editing all the contributions. Thanks also to Timmy, Blanid, and Ethon for being a steadfast sounding board during the development of the introduction and the epilogue. We are fortunate to have received an endorsement of the book from Dr. Laurie Ackles, who is Executive Director of the Canopy Foundation in the USA and former Director of the Spectrum Support Program at the Rochester Institute of Technology. I first had the pleasure of connecting with Dr. Ackles back in April 2018, and I now invite her to say a few words about what the book means to her. So over to you, Laurie.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I I guess I just wanted to say that there are a few things that make this book stand out to me. You know, there's lots of books out there. They're coming out quicker and quicker. But this one stands out to me because it really focuses so much on the broader context of exclusion and inclusion, and actually goes beyond the sort of old forms of inclusion where students in classrooms and people in workplaces are added to settings with supports rather than expected. And so the book uses availability rather than just inclusion. So no need to out oneself as neurodivergent to be able to get the help that you need, get the support that's required for you to bring your best to a educational or a workplace. And just advocating for really deep structural change and sort of radical reimagining of what education and employment can look like. And we're a ways from that, but this does give us kind of a nice framework for understanding and addressing some of those barriers. Yesterday, I had the pleasure to visit a place called the Herring Center for Inclusive Education here in Washington, in Seattle. And they're connected with the University of Washington and right on their campus. And it was such a visible representation of what this really means. They take these young kids, these preschoolers and these kindergartners, and they have developed these classrooms where right from the start, everything that any student would need is in the classroom. So everyone, gen ed students, students with in special education at all levels, they're all in the same classroom, and they have access to the supports and the options that they need to engage in education in the way that works for them. Whether they have special needs or whether they're general education students who would function in any other classroom. And it was really, really cool to see. And so I think it's a great example of thinking about this radical reimagining of what education and really employment can be if we think about this concept of availability, and if we think about this concept of expecting people in of all kinds in our environment. So I worked with someone in disability services at Rochester Institute of Technology who was a disabled woman, Catherine, and I'll never forget when she said, people with disabilities just want to be expected in environments. And I think if we can do that, it makes a huge difference. And so makes a huge difference in education and in the future of work. So thank you so much for this book.
Thank you so much, Laurie. That's great. Much appreciated. I'll now hand back to Mr. Ken Kilbride for the Q&A and wrap up. Thank you.
Nobody calls me Ken. My mother used to call me Kenneth when I was younger, but apart from that, it's Ken. But anyway, we digress. Just before we wrap up, and we've about 5 minutes down, so I just want to maybe a quick reflection. This probably maybe for Blana, Deaton, and Charlotte. We've talked about the journey that as a group we've been gone over the 5 years, the collaborations that we have. And again, just even from the chat there, there's several people that have said, delighted to be involved in the project. I've been involved in putting a chapter in. We've had people from Vermont, Malaysia, I've had people from Sligo. If anybody doesn't know where Sligo is, it's on the west coast of Ireland. Thanks to Demetrius for coming along. But maybe if I could just ask you just over 5 minutes, just in terms of looking at this project. There was something in the chat there comes in from Winnie. She says, Because of these contributions, we can see today where it's no longer necessary to discuss neurodiversity, because neurodiversity will be just part of the landscape of humanity. Could I maybe just for the three, if any of the other panelists want to jump in, we started off, 5 years, a little bit longer than that, what has been the journey and where do we need to get to?
I might start responding to that. Bláthnaid, you can take it over from me. I have a bit of a sore throat, so forgive me, I'm a little bit hoarse. But Bláthnaid might remember this, but about 10 years ago, possibly 12 now at this stage, we put in for a large European grant in the area of neurodiversity. And we had discussed it in relation to females and girls. And we were declined the grant. We were not successful. And when we received the feedback, we were told that basically we didn't know what we were talking about, that there's no such thing as ADHD in particular in females and girls. So we have been, and obviously this knowledge has come to be more, come to the fore more in more recent years. But I suppose the reason that I outline that story is because we have been really trying to look at this from a very evidence-based position, looking at gaps, which was the gender gap that was there that we were told didn't exist by one of our reviewers. So we've been on the cutting edge really of working in this area for quite a long time. And there's been huge changes. Another individual told us along the way that neurodiversity was a buzzword and would never take off when we were going with another project. So obviously, both of these comments have been shown to be untrue and problematic, and certainly wouldn't hold water today. So over that short period of time, there's been quite a significant change, and similar to what the individual outlines in the commentary there, I can see this change continuing, and something that will, and Charlotte alluded to it as well, something that will evolve hopefully as rapidly as it has done over the last while. And we'll be moving into a space where we'll be looking at this area completely differently, and kind of terminology and ideas and all of these things and kind of presuppositions that we've held for such a long time around individuals will no longer hold true. And hopefully our work in the area will contribute to that. So Bláthnaid, I don't know whether you want to add something to that there.
Thanks, Ethon, and very well remembered. Sometimes you forget the kickbacks, but absolutely, I think it's really illustrative of how far the journey has come since then. And to me, anyway, I don't know if it's a reflection of my age. It's as though time has speeded up. That particularly in the last 5 years, particularly as our group have all come together, there seems to have been a huge amount of change in this space. And on that note, I want to just thank everybody here today, because it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work alongside everyone. And I think the momentum has been clear. And in answer specifically to Ken's point, what I think is, I think that that it is eminently possible that we get to the point that you described. But perhaps because we exist in such a positive environment here in terms of these conversations, we might think we're closer to that point than we are. So there's an awful lot of work that has been achieved, but I think there's a way to go to really get to that point. But the projects like this, I do think make a difference, because the authentic inclusion of all of the different strands, different disciplines, different ways, is to me the key way forward to achieving that goal. So that's where I'm at on it. And as I think, again, just back to Ethon's point, as long as we're not kicked back too far with the knockbacks along the way, I think we get there in the end. So that's my take anyway. Thanks.
Charlotte, want to jump in there? Or?
Trying to unmute myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I do. I mean, at ION, we operate across all regions of the world, and we hear input from the remaining 80% of the world that is outside of the Western world on an everyday basis. Just this morning, I had a meeting with a person in China, and the kind of things that she's researching within neurodiversity in China and how to start an iron in China, and various different countries are coming on to all the time, wanting to try to bring this global community together. There's massive differences between the countries. We have to try to ensure that the movement has equal representation from around the world. But it has obviously started in the Western world and is still very sort of white Western world dominated, whether we like it or not, but we've got to own that, and we got to do our part to make sure that changes as well. And these kind of things are the kind of tools that can help that. As we move on with other books and other tools, we will try hard to also ensure that we get that representation into the various pieces that we are making, so that we can try to start seeing it from all the different places. What is quite interesting, and what I discussed this morning, is that if you think about some of the regions and countries where the awareness is not at high, is also, they don't also have sort of set ways of looking at neurodiversity yet. So they have the possibility of potentially jumping from the level they're at now and up to what the future might look at faster than the Western world, which is very set in the systems that's been set up. Changing a lot of systems that are already set in stone is much, much harder than not having any systems and jumping up and above. And I think we have a significant chance of being able to do that in certain countries. At the global at Iron, we are certainly trying to help all countries in the world to get us rapidly up into where we would like to be, which is complete inclusion of all neurotypes, and us being able to participate in society as equal citizens. That is still far from the case. And we are certainly having a lot of kickbacks going on right now, which is also a testament to how far we've come. When people want to start pushing us back down again, it means that we've risen beyond the comfortable place of many people. So I want to celebrate the kickbacks we get, because that is proof that what we're doing is working. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for all our contributors. Beth, if you were maybe to put up the slides, just a question came in there, a very important question. Where can people buy the books, and how can we help you promote them? So again, there's a QR code coming up here, where if you're looking to get a copy of one of the first two books, I don't know if Andrew wants to show us the soft copy he has, and I think Timmy actually has a hard copy there as well. So again, if you want to get a copy of these, they've already been out there, being delivered to places like Australia already. So I mean, if Beth, I think the slide was up there, but it's come down again. It has the QR code, and we've also put the link into the chat there, if anybody wants to get a copy of the book. I could say, forgive me, but they would make a wonderful present for somebody Christmas. That is to sort of undersell it just a little bit. This book is, these books in this series, is an important series that is important in terms of moving the agenda forward for everybody with ADHD, and sorry, excuse me, with neurodiversity. So with that, I'd like to thank all our contributors here today. Thank everybody who's been involved in the series. And most importantly, I'd like to thank everybody who took the time to come along today. Hope you found it interesting. As you say, tell a friend. And the links are there, and pass it on. And hopefully we'll see you at our next event very shortly.
Ken, just one more thing. So there is a discount code there. At the moment, if you go to the Routledge website, you automatically get a 20% discount without doing anything because of the Black Friday promotion stuff, but that'll disappear, and then this code can be used. Obviously, as Judith Hudson points out, it's also available on Amazon and certainly other booksellers as well. But that discount code is there. Those QR codes are there if you want to snap those on your phone, and they'll take you straight to the Routledge website, and you can order them there.
And don't forget your discount code, which is AEVV25. And
Yep,
that gets you a 20% discount.
Yep.
Thank you very much for pointing that out, Andrew. Sorry I missed that. It's always good to get a 20% discount, so that's very important. So Okay, well again, thank you very much again for all our contributors and all our panelists, and again, thank you for attending. And as I say, we do look forward to seeing you all again very shortly.